Apps can do a lot of cool things. You could order dinner, gamble on your favorite team, and track your health. You could even get a mortgage. One click and you can be approved. I'm not sure by who or what country they're in. You deserve more from the mortgage industry. At AnyMac Home Mortgage, we believe in the need for live human interaction during a very complex process. The kind of service and guidance which an app simply can't provide. Our customers are more than credit scores and income documents. They're individuals and families who live in and strengthen our communities. Their story is our story, and that story begins in a home. Chris Sawyer is an expert on providing superior customer service and in meeting the mortgage needs of current and future homebuyers. With over 18 years of experience in the industry, Chris is able to help customers migrate through the home buying and home financing process by using his wealth of knowledge as a well-qualified mortgage professional. And best of all, Chris is located in Cromwell, Connecticut, where he has helped hundreds of clients in Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island make their dreams of homeownership a reality. Visit chrissawyer.any-mac.com. Email him at csawyer@any-mac.com or give him a call, 860-878-8730.
Chris Sawyer, NMLS number 39345, corporate NMLS number 338923. AnyMac Home Mortgage is an equal housing lender. American Neighborhood Mortgage Acceptance Company, LLC, DBA AnyMac Home Mortgage. Go Direct. Connecticut First Mortgage Correspondent, License Lender, Broker Number ML 338923. Massachusetts Mortgage Lender and Mortgage Broker License Number MC 338923. Rhode Island License Lender, License Number 201128110L. Call for additional details.
Welcome to Sports Talk with R&J. I am Steve Risser, along here with Justin D'Onofrio. We have a busy show today. We got, NBA free agency news. We got a big trade in the NFL, and we got, the Yankees and Mets and Red Sox all struggling. But I don't know if Justin, I'm throwing you a curve here. We're going to open the show with some breaking news. The New York Knicks, and have you heard this yet? It was just reported by Shroms. The New York Knicks are expected to hire Mike Brown as their head coach. So the Knicks are expected to hire, I'm typing it into the show right now, are expected to hire Mike Brown as their head coach. And as a Knicks fan, I'll react to this. You really could have just, was this the best you could have done? Was this the best you could have done? You could have just kept Tom Thibodeau, because let's be honest. Tom Thibodeau or Mike, who are you taking? Tom Thibodeau or Mike Brown? I'm taking Tom Thibodeau. Yes, I get that Mike Brown led a team to the NBA Finals. I get that. I get that he led it. I get that he led a team to the finals in 2007. But he's been fired from the Lakers. He's been fired from the Kings. I know he's been an assistant. He's been an assistant under Steve Kerr, an assistant under Pop. But as a head coach, he's pretty much. I feel like he's an average head coach. I feel like an average head coach. And a big reason why the Cavs team got to the finals was because of LeBron James. So for me as a Knicks fan, I mean, do I hate the move? No. But do I love the move? Yes. I'm kind of in the middle on it. But for me, if you were going to hire Mike Brown, why didn't you just keep Tom Thibodeau? Now, for the Knicks, do I think they could get to the NBA Finals or with Mike Brown? Yes, because he proved he can get to the NBA Finals with the Cavs. So I wouldn't be shocked if they got to the NBA Finals. But but for me, I think this. I don't really like this Knicks coaching search, because if you were just going to hire Mike Brown, why didn't you just keep Tom Thibodeau? And your former Kings coach is now going to be the Knicks coach.
Yeah. That's Dolan for you there. It's a bad decision. It was bad decision to fire Thibodeau. I had a love-hate relationship with Mike Brown. Look, he's the best coach the Kings have had in 20 years. So, and we went from Luke Walton to Mike Brown. So it was, the worst coach of all time and it felt like, we had Phil Jackson on the bench, or, just how bad we've been with the head coaching stuff. But Mike Brown is kind of like a Tom Thibodeau 2.0. He's a tough-minded head coach. Against Sabonis, it's been reported that Sabonis got Mike Brown fired because he thought he pushed the team too hard. So, and then they fired. The one thing about Mike Brown is he's a very loyal guy to his staff. When the Kings fired him, they wanted Brown to fire his assistant coaches, or at least one or two of them. And he said, "No, those are my guys. I ain't firing them." So then they went, "Okay, then you're gone." But he's not, and the same thing with he'll play the bench, but he's gonna play more the veteran guys. Because guys like Keon Ellis on the Kings last year, he was playing well, but if he made a mistake like defensively, where he's somebody that does try to be a little bit aggressive and tries to get a steal, but if he misses on that steal and his guy goes by and gets a layup, he's usually getting pulled. Christie kind of unlocked him a lot more. So like Mike Brown's somebody that will pull kind of the younger guys out when they do make a mistake. And again, like Keon played a little bit more conservative than he has now. So look, I like Mike Brown. I didn't like some of the stuff he did. I didn't like how loyal he was to the Warriors in that series when Curry kind of called out the officials when the Kings were up 2-0. I wanted him to kind of light a fire under Fox as a bonus, and he didn't in that series. So that's where I lost a lot of faith in him because I'm like, all right, so you're just telling me your Warrior sides are a lot more, you care more about your Warrior sides than you do with this Kings team. So I liked him. He never should have been fired. It wasn't his fault that this was a disaster this year, but he's a good, solid coach. But yeah, I take Thibodeau over him.
Oh, absolutely. And you said it. He's like another Thibodeau. I think he's a lesser version of Tom Thibodeau. He's a lesser version of Tom Thibodeau. So you fire a guy for, pushing guys hard, but now you hire another coach that's kind of like him. So I clearly don't get it. But the big question is can the Knicks, are the Knicks the favorite to get to the NBA Finals with him as their head coach? And I'm going to say yes, because the Eastern Conference is so bad. So, I mean, the Pacers, they're going to be a disaster. They're not going to be good next year. The Celtics, Tatum is going to be gone. It's really them and the Cavs are clearly the top two teams. So I'm going to say yes. I think that even with Mike Brown, because he's gotten to the NBA Finals before, I think this is a team that can get to the NBA Finals and lose in 5 games, whoever wins the West. But I do think they're the favorite to win the East because at least Mike Brown, I know he's not as good as Thibodeau, but at least he's a capable head coach with experience.
Yeah. Because it would have been better than what the assistant coach that's in Cleveland now that I know was always
Johnny Bryant.
Yeah, this is a better move than hiring Johnny Bryant, who's a total unknown as a head coach, and you have no idea how it's going to pan out. So, yeah, I'd have to agree with you right now because there's not many options in the Eastern Conference right now. So, it's a team that got back. I think they've made some good minor moves. I have no idea who they the dude that they drafted. I've never heard of the guy before.
I know. Same with me. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think they made some solid, some little moves, but I think they've been solid to kind of help your depth. So yeah, right now I think with Mike Brown there and this Knicks team should be the favorite in the East.
Yeah, it's crazy to say that. But listen. I don't think Mike Brown's a great coach, but at least he's a coach with experience. And let me tell you, that's good enough to win this Eastern Conference. It's just good enough. That's the reality of it. It's good enough to win the Eastern Conference. The Cavaliers, they've had no experience late in the playoffs. The Magic. They haven't won a playoff series in years. So yeah, it's crazy to say the Knicks are the favorite with Mike Brown, but it looks like that's the case.
Yeah, it is. It does look like it. And yeah, the Knicks team's has a chance now. And yeah, to have a kind of a capable head coach that's kind of won before and he won Coach of the Year just a couple years ago with the Kings. So, he did a great job with that roster for just all full of pieces the last couple years. And that wasn't his fault, more the front office stuff. But, yeah, so I think, the Knicks, it's a downgrade. But with the way the Eastern Conference set up right now, it's definitely still win mode. And he's somebody that's gotten the finals before and can do it this Knicks team.
Oh, yeah. I think I mean it's crazy to say it, but I think he could just because of how weak the Eastern Conference is. I just think he can because of how weak the East is. But staying in the East, we got to get to the big news of the NBA offseason. Yesterday, the Bucks signed Miles Turner to a 4-year, $107 million deal, but they waived Damian Lillard, and they're going to have that $20 million cap hit from Dame Lillard for the next, for the next 5 years. So Giannis, he tweeted yesterday. He said, I don't know what the heck. I mean, he was confused what was going on here. It's very, very confusing. Very confusing if you really like this or not like this. Here's the thing for me. I think it makes them competitive. It makes them more competitive this year because they have a pretty good number 2. I think Miles Turner's a pretty good, decent 2. I think he's pretty good, not an all-star, but I think he's a good player. And I think that they'll be more competitive, but I don't think they're a title contender. I think they're I think they're the 4th best team in the Eastern Conference. And if they were in the West, they'd probably arguably be in the play. So I don't think they're a title contender because I think that Miles Turner is good, but he's not a needle mover. I think the Cavs are better. I think the Knicks are better. I think the Magic are better.
Yeah, I think, for the Bucks, I think at this point it's probably a little bit upgrade than Brook Lopez. Obviously, like you didn't have a shot next year with Dame Lillard. He's gonna be hurt all year. So why not when you're down or when these conference is gonna be down, especially next year with all the injuries, unfortunately, with some of their teams, kind of take a chance next year and see if you can pull it off. And yeah, there's like conflicting reports of Giannis like this. There's one I read that like Giannis was the one that recruited Miles Turner to Milwaukee. So who knows what's going on there. But with Giannis Turner, I think they're starting to build a little bit. It's just still like they still have Doc as a head coach, and I don't trust Doc Rivers. So that's kind of a you know, I don't love that still, but we'll kind of see what else they can try to do here. But yeah, without Lillard next year, I kind of like that they moved on. It didn't seem like it was working great anyways. So might as well bring in Miles Turner and kind of be an upgrade than Brook Lopez at this point in Lopez's career.
Yes, and you said it. Lillard, it wasn't really working the way they thought it was going to work. This was really the best they could do. This was probably the best free agent out there, so they got Turner. And it's not the ideal move, but I think as you talk about Giannis, this is probably the move to at least keep Giannis here for this year because we thought after they lost to the Pacers in the first round, there's a good chance he's going to be out. But this is a move. This is definitely a move to try to keep Giannis here, especially for this season.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know Milwaukee's. I don't know why they extended that GM recently too. With like after everything that's happened after the turn after they won the finals, it hasn't been great. But yeah, to try to keep them happy here for another year. We'll kind of see what else they can build around them here. I'm not, we'll see if they can build enough around and maybe with Giannis, yeah, maybe they can still find the way to upset somebody and they could maybe find themselves in the Eastern Conference Finals and who knows then. But yeah, I think the best they could do, and Giannis still one of the best players in the sport, and definitely maybe in the down Eastern Conference could maybe carry the load for Milwaukee if they could kind of find a couple of smaller pieces that could just kind of that kind of can fit and help out the team.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what they end up doing with the rest of free agency. But as I said, looking at it right now, I don't think they're a title contender. I don't. I know Giannis is one of the top three players in the league, no doubt. But when Miles Turner is your number two, and I like Miles Turner, but he was a number three with the Pacers. He wasn't. He was their third best player when they got to the finals. I just think it's very, very hard to win. I like Miles Turner. He's a good player. But I think it's very, very hard to win a championship with Miles Turner as your second best player. And I don't really care who your best player is because Giannis is top three, but I think it's hard for them to win with Miles Turner as their best player. Now, do I think they'll have as good or a better record? I think so because Dame missed 24 games this year. So I think their record could be as good or better. I wouldn't be surprised. But as a title contender, I'm going to say no. Brian Windhorst said it yesterday. It really doesn't move the needle for them.
Yeah, and I can see it. Turner's definitely an upgrade. I think, the way Turner plays, I don't totally love at times. Like I think think he's a little soft around the rim, and I think he could be a better rebounder than he is. But yeah, like normally if the Eastern, like if like the Celtics were healthy next year, I guess even if Halliburton was gonna be healthy too, like yeah, this is probably not a team that winning more than like a round. But with everybody banged up, maybe they do find a way to like upset a Cleveland in the semifinals, and they find themselves maybe playing the Knicks or something like that. So maybe so for next year, I could kind of see it. But like when some of these guys come back, like the Tatum's of the world, the Halliburtons, then yeah, I probably won't. The way presently constructed, but for next year, I'll say yes, but just how weak the Eastern Conference is.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be shocked because they have the best player in the conference. But I just think even with the conference being so weak, I mean, I just think that Orlando's better. I think that Cleveland's better, and I think the Knicks are better. So we'll see what they end up doing in the offseason if they keep moving them closer and closer to being a title contender. But right now, I think they're a top four team in the East, but I just don't think the Bucks are a title contender. But we'll move on to the Western Conference. And we'll talk about, the big question is with the moves that have been made this offseason. Specifically by three teams. I'm not putting the Mavs in there. I don't think the Mavs. I know they signed D'Angelo Russell, but they're not. To me, they're not a contender. We'll get to the Lakers, but to me, there's three teams that look like the biggest threat to OKC going into next year. Number one, I'm going to go with the Denver Nuggets because they I mean, it gave them their best series. I mean, I would say the Pacers gave them their best series, but they were the closest team in the West to beating the Thunder. They went to 7 games, and Porter Jr. and Aaron Gordon were banged up. So I think that the Nuggets are definitely one of those are in that conversation. Number 2, I'm going to say the Houston Rockets with the offseason they had, which has been, we'll get to the winners of the NBA offseason, but I think the Rockets have had a phenomenal offseason, trading for Kevin Durant, then signing some depth guys with Capella, bringing Capella back, and then signing Dorian Finney-Smith. So I think their depth is good, and you could potentially have a rising star in Amen Thompson there. They extended Van Fleet as well. So I think the Rockets are in that conversation. And then I got to put the Timberwolves in there because they've been to the conference finals 2 years in a row. And they re-signed Naz Reid, and they extended Julius Randle. So out of those 3 teams, who is the biggest threat? And I'm going to go with the Nuggets. I'm going to go with the Denver Nuggets as the biggest threat, just because they have won a championship. They gave the Thunder a great series. I mean, let's say great, a really good series. It took them to 7 games, even though the Thunder beat them by 30 in Game 7. And they got the best player in the sport in Jokic. And I don't mind their trade. I don't mind them trading for Cam Johnson either. So I'm going to go with the Nuggets. I think with this offseason, I know a lot of people are going Rockets because of how great their offseason was, but right now I'm going to go with the Nuggets. I think the Nuggets are the biggest threat to OKC in the West.
Yeah, for me too. I'm going with the Nuggets as well. I think they've had a really good offseason so far. I like Cam Johnson coming in as a stretch forward, and solid defender. To kind of add on that, where like defensively they were not very good last year, and then even like a guy like Bruce Brown they brought back from that 2023 team. I know but he's just a really good defender, and that's kind of what this team needed, and what they were lacking big time last year. And even getting Valanciunas from Sacramento, I think coming in to get like a backup for him as a backup, I think is really big. He's a good physical defender. Good kind of post score as well. So I like that move as well. So that was another thing too with Denver last year, is they weren't very deep. So I think now they got some depth now too around Jokic. So I really like what Denver did. So I like them more than the Timberwolves right now. I like they brought back Naz Reid. I think it's a little bit too much money to give him. And then with Houston, yeah, I know we talked about it last week, and then they made some other smaller moves here. But I still, KD being his 36, 37, whatever he is now, they have the Capella thing was not was decent, but now you got 3 good centers. I don't know how you rotate all those guys now. So I'll probably go Rockets 2 and then Timberwolves 3rd.
Yeah. I mean, I would do that order too. Because I mean, the reason I have the Nuggets 1 is because they got the best player on the floor. They have the best player on the floor, and they did it they did it a couple years ago. They've done it before. The Rockets, I think the Rockets are definitely more of a contender than they were a year ago. But Kevin Durant I still think he's a really good player, but he's not the needle mover that he once was. I think he's still a top 10 to top 15 player, but I don't think he's the needle mover he once was. And then looking at the Timberwolves, they did get to the conference finals again, but they kind of disappointed me in that series. The way Edwards has got to mature. Now, could the Timberwolves be that team? Absolutely. If Edwards matures and gets even better, absolutely. Because Edwards has potential to be a top 4 to 3-4 player in the league. He's not because of his lack of maturity. But I think he's got the skill set with the way how good he is on both ends of the floor, but he's got to mature. So the T-Wolves could be up there, but from what I'm seeing right now, I'm with you. Nuggets as Nuggets 1, Rockets 2, T-Wolves 3.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. With the Nuggets, they're depth now that they added, the experience factor. It's trying to say the head coach still a little bit of question mark. I thought he did all right in that Thunder series, but still be his first year as a full-time head coach here. So we'll see. And with Houston at their age, we'll see. And Udoka is a good coach, and we'll see if they get them over the hump, because they're definitely in a winning mode now. And the one thing with Edwards is, the immaturity at times, and we've seen the last couple of seasons where there's just games where he just does not show up, and that's a problem. Obviously it comes playoff time, so we'll see if they can kind of fix that. But I I agree with the same order as you there.
Yeah, I think that's the order there, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think all three have had good off. I think all three have Power have had a great. They've had a great offseason, and the Nuggets and the T Wolves have had very good offseasons. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with those teams. We got to move on to the Lakers. We got to move with LeBron, who opted into the last year of his contract, $52.6 million. The big question here with LeBron James is does he trust that the Lakers are going to this offseason going to build a team that can compete with the teams we just talked about? And to me, I don't know because they've been missing out on centers. They missed out on Brook Lopez. They obviously missed out on Miles Turner. They've missed out on adding that center, and they really haven't added much perimeter defense too. I really don't know right now with the Lakers. I really don't know with the Lakers, and this could potentially, if the Lakers don't do what they need to do, this could very, very easily be LeBron's last year with them.
Yeah, I could totally see it right now. Yeah, they missed out on a couple centers. Maybe they could still land at DeAndre Ayton.
That's key. That's going to be key. That is going to be key.
Yeah, like losing Dory, Finney Smith, I think kind of a big loss because he's a good 3-and-D guy, and you just mentioned it. They need kind of some perimeter defenders. I think the Jake LaBravia addition, like off the bench, I think is a good. He's a good shooter. He's an okay defender, but I do think he come off the bench and he can give you some scoring, which the Lakers really have struggled at times over the last couple of years, especially. So I think that's a decent piece. But yeah, right now it doesn't seem like they seem like very they're not very aggressive. And again, like outside of the move of Luka and that trade deadline they had a couple years ago when they at the Western Conference Finals, Luka's kind of he's not been a great GM. Like he really hasn't. It's just a couple of things that kind of fall in their lap, and those couple deals a couple years ago panned out. But like other than that, he's not. I don't think he's that great of GM.
He's got to start picking it up because you don't want to. I mean, right now the Lakers are more about Luka Doncic than LeBron James. Obviously, they made the trade for Luka. They're more about Luka Doncic than LeBron. But they can't upset Luka because if they upset Luka, they're in big trouble because LeBron's probably going to be this very easily could be his last year with the Lakers. And if you upset Luka, you're going to be in huge trouble because the Lakers got very, very lucky that Nico Harrison traded them Luka Doncic. They got very, very lucky. And they really need to have, they need to make this team. They need to make this team at least a top 5 team in the Western Conference, or things could get ugly between Luka and the Lakers. Things could very easily get ugly between Luka and the Lakers.
Yeah, potentially could. I think with the Lakers, kind of sound like, with the the Dodgers owner too, he's gonna find his Andrew Friedman of that the guy I've been able to find at Tampa Bay. I don't think it's probably going to happen this offseason, but maybe it happens next offseason. And that's when, like, I think the Lakers will become an unstoppable force again, and they're going to start running the league. So I think it's only a matter of time before, maybe they move on for Pelinka. They find the next great GM in the sport, and the Lakers just become a title contender every single year. And they kind of start a dynasty. And yeah, maybe that's what Luka. So yeah, so I think that's so, yeah, Luka maybe. Maybe this year doesn't go great, but I think in the future, I think they'll figure out Luka, and I think Luka, I think he'll be there, and I think they'll build a team around him in the next couple of years, and that will be title contenders.
Yeah, we'll see what ends up happening. We'll see what ends up happening with the Lakers. But to wrap up, we got to talk about our winners and losers of the NBA offseason so far. And the first one's so obvious with the Rockets. The Rockets are obvious because they went out and made the trade for Durant. As I said, they extended Van Fleet, went out and signed Finney Smith, and they end up signing Capella. They have the depth. The Rockets have put themselves in position where they're a top 3 team in the West. Where last year, I know they finished in second, but you could argue they weren't even a top 5, not even maybe even a top 6 team in the West with the way the roster was constructed. Now the way this roster is constructed, I think they're a top 3 team in the Western Conference because they got Durant and they improved their bench. So I think the Rockets are easily won this offseason. Number 2 for me, I'm going to go with the Atlanta Hawks, making the trade for Kristaps Porzingis and then adding some depth. Adding depth with Nico Walker-Alexander and then adding depth with Luke Kennard. I think they added depth. I think they added another good player in Kennard in KP. You got Risser on the roster too. Trae Young, one of the top point guards in the league. So I'm going to go with the Hawks, number 2. And then number 3, they didn't really make a lot of moves in free agency, but I'm going to go with the Magic because they made a trade that made them the top 3 team in the East, and a trade that could get them over the hump. This is crazy to say, but could get them to the NBA Finals in trading for Desmond Bane. So my 3 winners of the offseason are the Rockets, the Hawks, and the Magic.
Yeah, for me, my 3, I start off with the Houston Rockets as well. Yeah, they've had a really good one. I'll talk about, KD bring in, they re-signed Fred VanVleet, Jabari Smith, Dorian Finley-Smith, who's a good 3 guy that they brought in. I think they're one of the deeper teams now too in the league. And offensively they should be better now because you add KD as well. So they are my number 1. Number 2 for me is the Denver Nuggets. I thought, we just talked about them. They made a couple of good kind of moves. With Cam Johnson bringing him in, Bruce Brown help the defense, Jonas Valanciunas at the center spot. They got some depth. The one thing I just didn't like by the Cam Johnson trade is I thought they could have got a pick 2 because the Nets have so many of them.
I know.
I thought they could have grabbed one of those. But I think other than that, I think Denver's had a really good free agency here, and I like what they've done. And number 3 for me as well here is the Atlanta Hawks. You add Porzingis too to kind of help some of that paint defense. I know the health concerns there. Alexander Walker is a good defender too. Could shoot. And has a lot of postseason experience, and then a sharpshooter too, and Luke Kennard to bring him kind of going. And I think it's a Hawks team that how banged up the Eastern Conference is. Wouldn't be shocked if everything goes right for this team that they end up maybe find the way to a 4 or 5 seed. So I like what Atlanta's done here too in the last couple of days.
Yeah, it's a good point about the Hawks. It's a really good point about the Hawks. They could definitely find their way up there. Looking at the state of the Eastern Conference, and we've said it all show, the state of the Eastern Conference, they very easily could be a 4 or 5 seed. Because you look at the Celtics, they're not going to be – they definitely won't be as good. The Pacers, we know, they'll be lucky to make the play-in tournament. So, and you look at the Heat, they're an average team. Sixers, let's be honest, you can't trust the Sixers. Let's be real. You can't trust the Sixers. And B just has trouble staying healthy. You can't trust the Sixers. So, yeah, I think the Hawks, you made a good point. I would not be surprised if the Hawks are a number 5 seed. I wouldn't be surprised they're a 4 or 5 seed in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, because we've seen Trae Young do it again, at times before in the past. I know it's been a couple of years, but we've seen the talent that he could display. I know he recruited Alexander Walker to go down there and play down there in Atlanta. So yeah, like kind of the team that they're building, they got some young talent. So yeah, it won't shock me, and Trae Young could kind of in that team find their way to being in the upper half next year in the Eastern Conference because they're Division 2. Outside of Orlando, it's not mentioned Miami's mediocre. Charlotte and Washington are still kind of in rebuild mode. So that Division 2 is kind of open for them outside of Orlando.
It definitely is. It definitely is. So we had a blockbuster trade in the NFL, but before we talk about that, we are going to hear from our friends. We're going to hear from our friends at JPEG Financial. We're going to hear from our friends. Let me see if I got it. Yep, we're going to hear from our friends at JPEG Financial and Shamrock Home Inspections.
Do you have a 401k and some savings for future retirement, but don't even know if it's enough to live off of? How much is enough? How often are you thinking about it? The team at JPEX Financial Group can help set your mind at ease. We specialize in creating strategies in the planning and managing of your financial, educational, and investment needs. We help clients pursue their investment goals with sound financial strategies. You deserve a personal, tailored plan. Lasting, meaningful, and open relationships are the foundation of our practice. You've worked hard for your money and should feel confident in your investment choices as you make decisions for your financial future. Your goals are our goals. We are dedicated to your needs and hopes for your future. Visit our website and give us a call at 860-430-5397. Securities offered through Raymond James Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA, SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Raymond James Financial Services Advisors, Inc. JPEX Financial Group, LLC is not a registered broker-dealer and is independent of Raymond James Financial Services. JPEX Financial Group is located at 78 Eastern Boulevard, Glastonbury, Connecticut. There's no bigger investment than home ownership. And to make sure the house is up to your standards, you need a professional to look it over. Brian Flanagan from Shamrock Home Inspections is a licensed home inspector and a member of the Connecticut Association of Home Inspectors. Brian was a contractor for over 15 years, so he knows how homes should be constructed and how mechanicals should work.
What makes me a good home inspector was the 20 years that I was a home improvement person, doing all the different repairs that I have done and what other people have done wrong that I had to go out and fix. So I have a pretty quick eye on seeing what's right and what's wrong. Before you move, call Shamrock Home Inspections.
Before you make the biggest investment of your life, call Brian Flanagan from Shamrock Home Inspections at 860-268-2566 or visit shamrockhomeinspectionct.com.
Alrighty, on Monday we had a blockbuster trade in the NFL as the Steelers traded Minkah Fitzpatrick to the Dolphins for Jalen Ramsey, and the Steelers also got Jonnu Smith. So the Dolphins traded Ramsey and Smith for Minkah Fitzpatrick, a blockbuster trade between the two teams. And the question is, who is the winner of this trade? And I think the Steelers. I think the Steelers are the winner just because they got two players. The Dolphins got one. The Steelers, now arguably the Dolphins got the best player in the deal in Minkah Fitzpatrick, but the Steelers got two players. And Jalen Ramsey, even though I think Minkah Fitzpatrick is better right now, Ramsey plays a more important position. So I think they got two players in this deal. The Steelers. I think to me they were the winners of this trade. Justin, who do you think won the trade?
Yeah, I'm with you with the Steelers as well. Getting Jonnu Smith, another weapon for Aaron Rodgers. Ramsey, I know a couple years ago was a Pro Bowler. I know he's kind of dipped a little bit last year, but I think he's still a solid enough cornerback, and it's going to do well over there for Pittsburgh. So I like kind of the Steelers coming out here as a winner, and they also got a draft pick too for Miami. So they got it that as well.
Now we take it to the next step of the Steelers. A couple weeks ago when we knew Rodgers, when Rodgers signed there, the question was, are they a playoff team? Are the Steelers a playoff team? I remember, I think you said yes, that they are a playoff team. So we'll have two different questions, and I'll answer first for me, and for me, I don't think they are a playoff team. I don't think the Steelers are a playoff team. I think that the move. I don't think they are. I still think that it's still a good roster, not a great roster. I think Rodgers right now is an average quarterback. And if you look at the Steelers offseason, it's a weird offseason. They sign Rodgers, let Russ and Fields walk. They let Russ and Fields walk before, and they sign Rodgers. Then they trade for DK. They trade for DK Metcalf. They trade for DK, and they trade George Pickens. And then they lose Najee Harris in free agency, and they draft Caleb Johnson. And then they trade Jalen Ramsey, and they trade for Ramsey, and they trade Minkah Fitzpatrick. So it's been a very, very weird Steelers offseason. And I still think this is a 9-9 win team. I think it's a 9-8 win team, 8-9 win team, like they've been for the last 5 years, that might make it into the playoffs, that could sneak in the playoffs. But I don't see them as a team that I think they might be able to make the playoffs, but right now I don't have them as a playoff team. I have them behind the Bengals. I have them close to the playoffs, but I still have them behind the Bengals. Now, a couple weeks ago, you had the Steelers as a playoff team. Do you think the Steelers got closer to the Ravens with this move? Do you think they can compete with the Ravens making this move?
I still don't think they compete with the Ravens. I still think they're like a 9-10 win team, maybe. I think they still finish second in this division. I like another weapon here. Their offensive line get a little bit better. I know they got some young guys, and they can kind of be even better. This upcoming year is going to help. I think the Steelers defense, it's always going to be pretty good and going to keep them in games. And I think too, partially I have them second too. Is because I think you're getting two teams from this division that are going to get in the playoffs at least. And there's still just a part of me that, look, Joe Burrow is one of the best quarterbacks in the sport, but can he really play Superman again this year like he did last year? Because that was just really impressive what he did last year. And, they open with Cleveland and Jacksonville. Like, you better start 2-0, but with Zach Taylor as a head coach, I don't fully trust him to. So part of me, too, is I just don't trust the Bengals because I don't think that defense has got much better either. But I do like the Steelers team. I do think they're a playoff team. I think they get to like 9. Maybe they find a way to get 10. I know the back half of the schedule is tough, really tough like it was last year. But I do like it. I think it's small, kind of couple upgrades there, especially Johnny Smith had a really really good year with Miami last year.
Yeah, I mean, but here's the thing. I mean, we both can agree they're not a Super Bowl contender, and the real reason why is they really haven't solved their issue at quarterback. To me, right now, Aaron Rodgers is a band-aid. Aaron Rodgers is like at this point in his career, it's crazy to say because he's a first ballot Hall of Famer and a 4-time MVP. But right now, you're just putting a band-aid on the issue. You're just putting a band-aid on the issue. I mean, you're probably more than likely you're going to be, right. You're going to at best, make the playoffs and probably lose in the first round, and you're probably going to. And Rodgers has said last week this is probably going to be his last year, so you're going to be looking for a quarterback next year anyway. So to me, the big thing is, yeah, you think they're going to be better than I am, but I think what we both agree on with the Steelers is they're not a Super Bowl contender. They're not a Super Bowl contender, and they obviously need a solution at the quarterback position. And Aaron Rodgers right now is a temporary solution.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of the problem when you finish around, when you're picking around 20th every single year. And look, credit for the Steelers for never being like that, or as bad as they could be, being like like a 3-4 win team. Like they always find a way to be mediocre. And I know to a point you don't want to be that. You rather try to be kind of as a Super Bowl contender. But yeah, because that's kind of the problem. It's just tough to find a middle quarterback when you're drafting, around the 20s every year. So yeah, I don't think they're still a contender. They probably get bounced in the wild card round, like they have the last couple of years here. But yeah, that's the issue, and it's gonna be it's gonna be tough unless they think their franchise guys out there next April in the draft, April May, and they like somebody. Yeah, it's gonna seems like to keep being just a revolving door. Just because of where the slot they get, where they're always picking.
Yeah, it just seems to be that way for the Steelers, but they are all in. I mean, they are all. It's weird. They're all in because of Ramsey's getting up there in age. Rodgers is obviously at the end. DK Metcalf, he's been in the league 6-7 years. They are all in, but it's weird for a team that's all in to trade other pieces as well, like trade Pickens, trade Minka in the Ramsey deal, but to pay the guy who's a little unhappy right now, TJ Watt, they have to make those moves.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah, because he is one of the best defensive players in the sport right now, and having those edge rushers are so important, especially somebody like him that could really impact the game. Like he can is crucial, and we've seen a lot. And I know he's had his injury kind of history here, but like when he's healthy and when he's in there, he's an absolute game record. So yeah, that's somebody you don't want to lose, and you got to make happy, and you got to pay him what he wants because he's so important in that team, and just with the talent that he has and his ability to just direct games, especially in like that division. You go up against Lamar, you're going up against Joe Burrow. I guess even in the whole conference where you got Mahomes too, you got Herbert, you got Josh Allen. There's so many good quarterbacks too that you would hate to lose a guy like TJ Watt who can get after those guys.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see because now the trade rumors are back, or they're starting to circulate again, and we'll end up seeing. Now, I think he's going to get paid. I don't think the Steelers are going to let him walk. I just don't think that's going to happen. But it's interesting to see what now because they're taking on more money now with the addition of with trading for Smith and with trading for Ramsey.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we'll see how they could kind of play around with that and kind of do that, and how they manage how they manage the cap in its situation. But yeah, he's somebody that I think you have to pay. And yeah, you're gonna have to pay a lot, but maybe it's something where it doesn't work out this year. You don't have to pay Rodgers next year. Maybe if it doesn't work out, maybe they find a way to move Ramsey next year. So maybe there's a little room that they could kind of open some things up next year. But he's somebody that I expect them to pay to be in Pittsburgh for another couple of years.
Exactly. We'll see what happens with the Steelers. But now looking at the Dolphins side of this really means one thing. There's a ton of pressure on Chris Greer. There's a ton of pressure on Mike McDaniel, and there's a ton of pressure on Tua to get it done this year. Because if they don't, Greer's probably going to be gone. McDaniel's going to be gone, and then the clock's going to start ticking for Tua because with the new coach and the new GM, he's not their guy. So there's a lot of pressure on these guys because you know what? Because they granted Ramsey his wish. You know, they ended up trading him. So now with the team you have right now with the Dolphins, I mean, you got to get it done now. You got to get it done. I mean, the Dolphins have lost a lot of players, good players on defense. Lost Christian Wilkins, and lost Jalen Ramsey. They Tyron Armstead retired. So there's a lot of pressure right now on McDaniel, Greer, and Tua in Miami.
Yeah, there is. I don't like this roster. I don't
I
think
don't
this is
really
a
either.
very
I
good
think
team
this is
either.
a very 7-8. It looks like a 7-8 win team to me. That is probably gonna have a new coach and new GM at the end of the year.
Probably. And yeah, there's Tyreek Hill too. There
That's a
was a
good
rumor at the
question.
end of last
Very
year.
good question there. Very good
That's
question. Yeah.
yeah, because then you probably with him you give him another win. So like yeah, I could see this team maybe being 7-win team. Um, I don't love the offensive line still. I think is a question mark. Like I don't think that they really made the necessary upgrades that they needed. I think they'd be a little bit better than they were last year or on the offensive line, but like not much. Um, and yeah, Greer, I think it's just sort of trouble here. And I know Miko was there under a different regime, but like he already asked out of Miami once. Like
And Greer
I
was the
think
GM when
those,
he was
yeah.
Greer
Oh
was the
yeah,
GM when he was
yeah.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, so like that's a little awkward to bring him back now after he wanted out the first time, and who knows, maybe if they're 2-5 or whatever, he asks out again at the trade deadline, and you got to move him again. So I don't love it. It's a head scratcher, and then bring it and then traded Darren Waller for a draft
That's
pick. Like
weird. That's weird. Oh, listen, as
yeah,
a Giant
I,
fan, I'll take that 6th-round pick.
yeah, it might be a top 3, top 5 pick maybe, potentially if things don't go well. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I don't understand what Miami's doing here. So yeah, I did not love the move, but it's not good in Miami down there.
And here's my recap of the trade. I mean, the Steelers' chances to compete slightly go up. The Dolphins' chances to compete slightly go down because they're pretty much just trading a defensive back for a defensive back, and an average tight end is in the deal as well. So the Steelers' the Super Bowl chances to compete go slightly up. The Dolphins go slightly down. But I think both these teams are still in the mix for like that last wild card spot with your Patriots and the Bengals. That's what I think it is. I think all these teams are still going to be in that mix for that last wild card spot with those two other teams.
Yeah, I see that being possible. You have the Patriots, the Bengals. I'm really kind of out on the Miami. Like I don't know if they're competing for
You think New England's clearly ahead of them now, even though the Dolphins have owned them.
I know they have. I know they have. The Patriots better beat them this year, at least once. They never won in Miami with Brady either. But the Patriots better finish above them in the standing this year.
Wow. Would you say if they don't finish above them, Elliott Wolf should be fired?
Maybe.
You're saying better.
Yeah, because I think the Patriots now are a better team than Miami. The Miami just seems like they're about to go into rebuild mode, and I think the Patriots should be better than that type of team at this point.
Yeah,
but,
Dolphins have the more proven quarterback. Maybe the roster for the Dolphins is a little bit better, but the coaching, I think, is definitely you definitely give the Patriots the edge with the coach.
Yeah, which definitely helps out. But yeah, like if the Patriots don't, I think that big part of that means Drake May had a regression this year, or there were just a ton of injuries. So yeah, he could probably, but I don't know how much Elliott Wolf's pulling now with Vrabel there. Like I don't know if Vrabel is just the de facto GM, but I wouldn't be shocked if they would move on from Elliott Wolf just to throw something at the fans because there's expectations this year, first time in a couple years.
Yeah, we'll be talking about that a lot this year with the Elliott Wolf, Mike Vrabel thing. We'll definitely be talking about that. But as I said, as we recap this trade, it makes the Steelers' chances a little bit better, Dolphins' chances a little bit worse, but I think they'll both be competing for the last wild card spot. But to wrap up the show, we got to talk some baseball, and the Yankees continue to struggle. They've lost the last 2 games to the Toronto Blue Jays, and now it's crazy to say this. The Blue Jays are one game behind the Yankees in the American League East. The Yankees have really struggled since Memorial Day. They've really struggled this month. As you said it though, the second half, the good starts, and this is now the Yankees are going into a swoon like they have the last 4 years. It's just, let me tell you something. I don't want to see Mark Leiter on the mound. He's so bad. Mark Leiter is so bad. He is so awful. I am so done with Mark Leiter. I cannot stand him. But again, it all goes. The bullpen has been terrible in Toronto. It's just been terrible. The offense has been inconsistent. Pitching has been a little inconsistent too. I mean, Clark Schmidt was not good on Saturday. Freed had probably one of his worst starts of the even though Chisholm, as you talk about the third base situation, Chisholm screwed him yesterday, gave him that extra out, and Jimenez hit the 3-run homer. But yeah, it's not looking good. It's not looking good for the Yankees right now. It's not looking good. I mean, they have holes everywhere. I think they got holes in the lineup. I think they need some more. They definitely need depth in the bullpen. I think bullpen's almost a priority for this team.
Now with Cruz out?
Oh, yeah. Bullpen is definitely the priority for this. I think it's the number one priority for the team at the trade deadline is the bullpen. Rotation has been good recently, but there's still some holes in the rotation, and there's holes in the lineup, especially at third base. They need a third base. So I think the biggest priority for this team, as we've seen, their struggles, third base and bullpen is definitely going to be their biggest needs come trade deadline time.
Yeah, it absolutely will be. Now talking about the bullpen here. When Heel comes back, because I don't know how much they're gonna be able to stretch him out between I think they're hoping end July. They'll have him back. I think it's tough to play. Like, I think for the remainder of this year, you just have him be a bullpen guy that can give you a couple innings because you mentioned the bullpen is super taxed right now. I wouldn't mind if Heel comes back and just a bullpen guy for the rest of the year. I think it's tough to do it.
That makes sense because the rotation, I don't mind the rotation. I mean, especially the top three with Freed and Rondon and Schmidt. I don't mind that. So that's a good point there.
Yeah. So I think maybe that could be something that they could try to do. But yeah, like you mentioned the Chisholm thing. Like there was an article yesterday on The Athletic. I forget who wrote it, but like the Yankees told Jazz in the offseason, you're going to play exclusively second base.
Yeah,
so all offseason, he just worked at second base. He didn't work at third.
Why is he playing third? Oh, I don't understand that. I don't understand
because they're trying to squeeze every ounce of what's left of DJ LeMahieu, who has zero range out there now. And because even Volpe now on Monday night makes the two dumb throws and cost him a couple runs on Monday night.
Yeah.
It's just it would help out if you put Jazz at second. Yeah, DJ's probably not gonna be great at third, but you might as well you'd rather kind of make one spot a little bit better than it is because Jazz is it's a solid second baseman over there. So all the metrics kind of say that. So I'd rather have that. And again, with Volpe 6 for his last 53 now, defensively he's a mess. Boone's still just you see Boone defending him the other day, Volpe, but then got mad at JC Escarra the other day when they had the pass ball. And the runner was going to third, and he threw it to Rodon. And the throw was fine. And Boone was like, yeah, I told him, that's you can't make that play because it's possibly going to give up another run if it's an overthrow. Wow. But he defends Volpe where he never should have thrown that ball to third.
I know.
I don't know why they treat him with training wheels.
Yeah.
He's I'm just so out on Volpe. I
mean, he's an hitter, but defensively, he's really not. He's not hitting well enough for his defense to be terrible. No. If he's hitting well, I wouldn't mind his defense being as bad, but he's not hitting well enough for his defense to be this bad.
No, it's not. And his defense is regressing. I know, the rookie year we won the Gold Glove, I didn't. I know shortstop that year wasn't a great year. I didn't think he was gonna probably win many Gold Gloves, but I think his defense got even worse the last couple of years. So it's abysmal. So yeah, I'm kind of out on him. And then you actually mentioned Mark Leiter. So out of the 157 relievers this year, right-handed relievers in the sport, there's that will qualify in WHIP. He's 150 out of 157 right now.
He's garbage. WHIP, so. He is absolute. Yeah. I don't care who his father is. He is absolute garbage. He's garbage. Yeah. They need to get rid of him. I am done with him. I don't want to see him pitching for this team again. I'm done. I'm done with Mark Leiter.
Well, Boone loves to put him in at every big spot when they need him.
I know. When they're up I don't get it. Monday night when they're up 3-0, Boone has him in the game. It's ridiculous. It's absurd. Then yesterday when it's 4-4, he has him in the game. It's absurd. Yeah. Get rid of this guy. He's terrible.
Yeah, he's got one more year after this one for $4-5 million. He's or actually it's arbitration, so I don't know what he'd owed next year. But they're gonna need to because he's been a Met. You can't trust him right now, and it's just tough right now because there's this bullpen is just taxed out because there's a problem with the sport right now. They baby these starting pitchers and they go 5 innings and then you're just depleting the bullpen.
Yeah,
Same
but
thing the Mets have right now.
Bullpen's got to do a better job. Bullpen has got to do a better job.
It is, but I just think they're tired.
All right,
I just think they're burnt out.
But 16th in bullpen
Like,
ERA, it's got to be better. It
it's
just
not
has to
great.
be better. It was better last year. Even though we had trouble with Clay Holmes and all those issues last year, it was a better bullpen last year, and it was a really good bullpen when they moved Weaver to the closer role. But yeah, it's just, and I get you're saying, oh, they baby the starters, but the bullpen just got to be better. It's got to be clearly better because they're giving up games. They're just clearly giving up games. They gave up a game against the Orioles a couple weeks ago too. So the bullpen's just clearly got to be better.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. It does, and
and they gave up a game to the Reds too. I know, boom, gave that game away. They gave up a game to the Reds a couple weeks ago.
That's the other problem. He still has zero feel for a baseball game. And that's something he's never gonna get. I've been saying that for years since that Devi Garcia start in the since then. And the Rays are up, I think 5-2 now, so you might be a half a game in the next couple hours. They're still game and a half out, so it'll be a game out as well. So. Yeah, it's not good right now. And they've lost 12-18. If you won 3 of those, you're still up 4 games.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
but now speaking of the say what you're gonna say first.
Oh no, I was gonna say you still have a decent, comfortable lead, and the Rays in Toronto aren't going anywhere because Toronto to be aggressive trade deadline like that. That front office
they were aggressive in they struck out on guys. They were aggressive especially with Pete Alonso in free agency.
Yeah. So, and that front office needs to make because I think a lot of those guys, like the GM, all of them are I think they have one more year left. And so, they need to make the postseason to get their extension. So, I could see them taking a chance on a Sandy Alcantara. That's a move I could see Toronto going out making. So,
yeah. And you talk about Toronto and Tampa. What's your confidence level in the Yankees winning the AL East? It's still high. I think it's, to be honest, even though they haven't played well against the AL East, it's still high. It's still high because I just don't think Toronto and Tampa are good enough to beat the Yankees. I still think they are. So it's still high that they're going to repeat in the AL East. But what's your confidence level?
Medium right now. Because the problem is I don't know how the Yankees are going to upgrade the deadline besides pitching wise. I don't, because I think there's a bunch of teams that are going to go out and go try to get a third baseman. This is why the Red Sox move. They could have waited on Devers and probably got a lot more because you probably could have got some desperate teams that but I'm medium because I know the Rays about to go on they're about to have a 12-game road trip.
Yeah.
But with Toronto, it's Kirk's had a bounce back year.
Springer, how about Springer yesterday with 7 RBIs?
Yeah. He's another one, just always seems to kill the Yankees. Addison Berger has had a nice year for him. I know Santander's, but he's been banged up. But if they get him back, he kind of produce. Vladdy's having a pretty good year. So some of the guys Toronto really stepped up this year. So, and I think they're going to be aggressive. So I could see Toronto finding a way to knock them off. Tampa, we'll see. I just worry about the road games a little bit, but they're starting pitching. They've thrown the most innings in the sport this year, which is insane. And Shane McClanahan hasn't thrown a pitch yet, and they're expecting him back soon. So I wouldn't be surprised, but I'm medium. I'm a little worried.
Yeah, you do. You do with the way they're playing. But we were worried at this point last year, and they ended up winning the division and getting to the World Series. Yeah. So I know they don't have Soto. I still think this team, I know they've struggled. I still think this team has a good chance. And you saw this week, they still have the best odds, even better odds than the Tigers. Now, I think the Tigers have better odds to get to the World Series, but they still have better odds than the Tigers to get to the World Series. But I don't agree. I think the Tigers should be the favorite. But
that's Vegas. That's the Yankees tax.
Yeah. I think the Tigers should be the favorite, but we'll see. We'll see. The Yankees still still have a chance to the Yankees still, even though they've been not playing well, they still have a good chance to get back to the World Series. But they face a team this week that had high expectations, but recently they've not been living to those expectations, losing 13 of 16 games to the Mets. The big question is, before we preview that series, are the Mets a World Series contender? And I'm still going to say yes. I'm just like the Yankees. I'm still going to say yes, even though they've been playing terribly. And the thing is the thing about the Mets was their lineup was not as good as we thought it was going to be. Soto didn't get off that good of a start. No, Alonso's been great, but Soto hasn't got off to that good of a start. Lindor hasn't been as good as people expected either. But they're pitching, the guys like Peterson and Clay Holmes, they were kind of pitching over their heads, and their bullpen was doing better than expected. But recently, their bullpen hasn't done well as expected, and their rotation hasn't done well as expected, and it's shown up because the team has lost 13 out of 16. And the big question is, are the Mets a World Series contender? I'm still going to say yes because they got some pitchers on the IL with Manaea and with Singa. And I know Griffin Canning's going to be a loss. He tore his Achilles. That's going to be a loss. But with Minaya and Singh, I still think they are contenders. I still like Mendoza. I really like the job he did last year. I don't think he's done as good of a job this year, but I still like Mendoza. So I am going to say yes. Even though they are not playing well and they're in second place right now, I still will say the Mets are World Series contender. But their path is going to be brutal, though, having to get by the Phillies and the Dodgers. Their path is brutal, but I'm still going to say they're contenders with the roster they have.
The roster they have right now, I'm going to say no, because I understand what David Stearns is doing by he doesn't want to sign starting pitching long term because of the injury risk, and I totally get where he's going with that. But like the problem with what you're setting up here is, a guy like Clay Holmes, like the starters kind of are they were great for the first like 2 months or so. Now they're starting to kind of come back down to earth, and like a guy like Clay Holmes has been a closer his whole career. How many innings he's going to be able to throw for that? He's got some burnout. David Peterson, I know the last couple of starts with him haven't been great. So I really think they need a starting pitcher or two for me to kind of put them back in a World Series contender, because they're another team too that some of these starters only go like 4 or 5 innings, and your bullpen is just taxed at the moment. And Brad Zabon, who's been really good this year, now he's kind of lost control his last couple outings because he's had to throw a lot here. So for me, I think the Mets really need some starting pitching help. And again, there's not a lot of sellers this year where you go that have like the starting pitching help right now. So for me, I'm gonna say no, just because they need more pitching. But they have the lineup. Like Soto's gotten hot now, but I know Pete Alonso and Lindor have cooled off. But like if those two get it going again, they'll be fine. Like the only other thing I would say too is they probably need a center fielder. I know Luis Rojas is not having a great year, but maybe you could find a way to get him out of Chicago. But yeah, I think the team needs some pitching help.
They do. That's definitely where they're going to go. They're definitely going to be in the market for starting pitching as we get into the trade deadline. But we'll preview the Subway Series this week. Yankees and Mets. The Yankees won 2 out of 3 in May. They'll play on July 4th weekend at Citi Field. And I know the Yankees are not playing well, but I do think they're going to take 2 out of 3 because I think they clearly have the pitching advantage. They might have the pitching advantage in every game because you got Blackburn against Stroman on Friday, but then you got Rodon against Montes on Saturday, and the Mets haven't announced a starter for Sunday, and Max Fried is pitching for the Yankees. So I think the Yankees are going to take 2 out of 3 with the way the Mets are playing right now and the way the Mets pitching has been. I'm going to take the Yankees 2 out of 3 this weekend at Citi Field. I'm
going to take the Mets to win 2 out of 3.
You've been down. You always pick against the Yankees in these series, but you have been right. Both the Red Sox series, you were right.
I don't know. I've just seen this Yankee story before. I think right. Yeah, like I know Stroman pitched pretty well coming back, but like Blackburn's been awful. But can the Yankees, the way the Yankees offense have been playing, I don't know if they could shut Paul Blackburn. He might have a bounce back day and go 7 innings and shut him out. I could see it. Maybe they get Saturday. I think Sunday the Mets. I think the plan was to have Minaya go Sunday. It sounded like, but now that the game, his rehab start got rained out last night, maybe that changed their plans for Sunday. But yeah, so maybe it's Minaya still. Maybe he could be in there. So I think maybe you potentially went Sunday with Fried on the mound, but I maybe you went Saturday against Montas, but I don't know. I could see them. I just don't think the Yankees are playing in any facet of the game right now, especially defensively. So I think they play a little league team, and I think a team like the Mets could take advantage of that and score a run or two off an air.
Yeah. We'll see what happens this week at Citi Field. But we'll wrap up talking about the Red Sox. And I know they scored, 15 runs on Sunday. I know they scored, a bunch of runs on Saturday. I mean, they scored 15 on Saturday, and they scored a bunch of runs on. Willie Abreu had a great night on Monday night. Yeah. But my issue with this team is they're just too inconsistent. The lineup's too inconsistent. The rotation's too inconsistent. The bullpen doesn't have depth outside of Aroldis Chapman, and they traded their best player. And I'm still very down on this team. I still think this team is going to be a sellout at the trade deadline, and they might look like they're in it, at the All-Star break because the schedule has softened up a little bit. They go to the Nationals this week. They got the Rockies, I think, at Fenway after that. But then they got the Rays right before the break. Then they go look at their schedule. Look at their schedule right in the second half of the year. 3 in Chicago, 3 in Philadelphia, 3 at home against the 3 games at home against the Dodgers. That is absolutely brutal. I just don't think they're gonna be in it. I think they're gonna be out of it before the trade deadline, and they're gonna be way out of it. I think they're gonna be 5-6 games under 500. I think they're gonna be 5-6 games under 500 in fourth place at best in the AL East, and I think they're gonna be sellers come trade deadline time because I just don't think this team is good enough, and I haven't thought this team is good. And I've been out on this team ever since the day they traded Devers.
Yeah, it's been very consistent. Brady's got going the other night. Roman Anthony's had, he's starting to get a couple hits as well now, and he's starting to look pretty good. Yeah, Chapman's been good. I know with Bregman, sounds like they feel like he's feeling pretty good right now. They're gonna reassess this weekend, so they didn't say so. Maybe if everything's good, maybe he's getting ready to start a rehab assignment and he comes back like after the All-Star break or right around that weekend. So that will help when you get into that gauntlet of a schedule to have him back in the middle lineup, because the one thing with them is they're just so young in that lineup. Like they don't have a veteran guy to help out, to kind of be kind of a big stick in that kind of lineup. So yeah, I could see it because the pitching staff's still kind of questionable. Giolito's been better of late, but that if that gauntlet's gonna be tough. So I wouldn't be shocked if they're find a way out of it. But I really think that Breslow has to kind of be aggressive this trade deadline, just for the fan base to cool off a little bit.
I just don't think they're going to be in it. I think it's not going to matter because they're going to be out of it. They're going to be so far out of it where it doesn't make sense. I think they're going to be so. You look at when you have their. I mean, you have the games they have from they have 4 brutal series. They got the Rays, the Cubs, the Phillies, and the Dodgers all in a row, and then they go to Minnesota for 3, and then they got 3 games with the Astros. But that's after the trade deadline. But leading up to the trade deadline, their schedule is so difficult where I just don't think this team's going to be in it. I really don't. No, they're going to look like they're in it. No, listen, by the next couple of weeks, they're going to look like they're in it because their schedule softens up. But once their schedule gets, once we get, I'm telling you, once we get to late July, we're probably going to be saying this team should be sellers at the trade deadline, which we never thought would happen with them going out and trading for Bregman and trading for Crochet. Signing Crochet.
Yeah, they did trade. You were right. They did trade for Crochet, and then they did, extend him.
Sign Bregman. I mean, I got to mix up.
Yeah,
sign Bregman and trade for Crochet.
Yeah. No, it's fun, but yeah, it's not been the year that most Red Sox fans thought were going to happen this year. It's kind of happened. Bregman did say he's open to sign an extension long term. Boston. Now that might just be, his agent is Boris, so we'll see. But yeah, it's a brutal gauntlet. I just think Breslow needs, if they kind of sell, does that ownership, the ownership listen and fire Breslow after 2 years? I'm not sure, but it's possible. If they're anywhere near, they're still like 3 or 4 back only of a wild card spot. I see that team trying to buy just to feed that fan base something, because it's just to kind of get some heat off of Breslow. And they have the money now to do it. They added another extra $250, so they should be trying to use that money. But yeah, we'll see. But I wouldn't be shocked if they start 0-6 on that road trip or 1-5 against that gauntlet. Then yeah, maybe they do become sellers. But I really think they're going to try to stay buyers, just to try to lift that fan base up a little bit.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what they end up doing. And really, this month of July is going to determine what they're going to do when we get to the trade deadline at the end of the month. But that's going to wrap up this edition of Sports Talk with R&J. For Justin D'Onofrio, I'm Steve Risser. We will be back next week talking more NBA offseason, more Yankees and Red Sox, talking about the race between Cal Raleigh and Aaron Judge, because the Yankees and Mariners are playing each other. And we'll be talking about any NFL news that comes our way. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Hello, my name is Joe Aguirre. I'm the president of Clovercrest Media Group. And here at CMG, we have a wide variety of podcasts, including sports shows like Keys to the City, The Roll Call, Throwing Jabs, All Four Downs, and Jawing About the G-Men. And great true crime shows like Sticky Week, Crimes and Consequences, Ivy League Murders, and Bird, the unsolved murder of David Eichmann. You can find all these podcasts and so much more by visiting clovercrestmedia.com.